The massive alien ship appeared suddenly, breaking through the clouds above New York City. Its dark metal surface reflected the morning sunlight, creating strange patterns on the buildings below. People stopped in the streets, their phones pointed upward, capturing humanity's first contact with alien life. Captain James Reed stood at the command center of Earth Defense Force headquarters, his hands gripping the edge of the control panel. The large screen in front of him showed multiple views of the alien vessel. It was huge, at least 3 times the size of their largest aircraft carrier. "Sir, they're broadcasting something," said Lieutenant Wilson, her fingers flying over the keyboard. It's in English." Reed raised an eyebrow. The aliens had been watching them long enough to learn their languages. That wasn't necessarily a good sign. The message played through the speakers. "People of Earth, we are the Stellar Alliance. We come seeking diplomatic relations with your world." Reed knew this moment would change human history forever. He also knew that as Earth's chosen representative, he couldn't afford to make any mistakes. The first meeting was set up in neutral territory, a specially prepared conference room at the United Nations. Reed led a team of 5 human diplomats, each chosen for their expertise in different fields. The aliens sent 3 representatives, tall beings with silvery skin and 4 arms each. The lead alien called himself High Commander. He spoke perfect English but seemed to look down at the humans, literally and figuratively. "Your species has potential," he said, his voice smooth but cold. "We could help you advance by centuries." "We appreciate the offer," Reed replied carefully, "but we'd need to understand the terms of any agreement." The High Commander's expression changed slightly. Something like amusement crossed his face. "Terms? You misunderstand. We are offering you the privilege of joining our alliance. The terms are simple. You submit to our guidance, and we lift you out of your primitive state." Dr. Miller, one of the human diplomats, spoke up. "With all due respect, we'd prefer a partnership of equals." The aliens laughed. It wasn't a pleasant sound. "Equals? Your species still dies from simple diseases. You haven't even colonized your own solar system. You fight wars over primitive resources." "We may not be as advanced technologically," Reed said firmly, "but we have our own strengths." "Strength?" The High Commander waved one of his 4 arms dismissively. "Your bodies are fragile. Your lifespans are short. Your technology is primitive. What strength could you possibly have?" What happened next would be remembered as the moment everything changed. Dr. Miller stood up to argue the point, but the High Commander simply pointed a small device at him. There was a flash of light, and Dr. Miller collapsed. "A simple demonstration," the High Commander said, as if he'd merely erased something from a blackboard. "This is what happens to those who don't understand their place." The room erupted into chaos. Security forces rushed in, but the aliens had already transported back to their ship. Dr. Miller was dead, killed just to make a point. Reed stared at his colleague's body, his hands shaking with rage. The aliens had just killed a human being, as casually as someone might swat a fly. Within hours, the news spread across the globe. The response was not what the Stellar Alliance expected. Instead of fear, there was anger. Instead of submission, there was defiance. Humanity had been unified by a single act of casual cruelty. In orbit, the High Commander sent a message to the Alliance Council. "The humans are refusing to accept their place. They speak of war. How should we proceed?" The Council's response was quick. "If they resist, show them their insignificance. They will learn, as all species do." But as the Alliance would soon learn, they had made a terrible mistake. They had judged humanity by their technology, by their apparent physical limitations, by their divisions. They had failed to see what made humans different from every other species they had encountered. And that mistake would cost them dearly. The Stellar Alliance expected Earth to surrender within days of their demonstration. Instead, they watched in confusion as something unprecedented happened. The entire human race united against them. Commander Tom Wells stood in the newly formed Global Defense Command Center, looking at the wall of screens showing news from around the world. Former enemy nations were now sharing military resources. Scientists from different countries were working together, sharing their research openly. The attack had done what centuries of diplomacy couldn't. It had unified humanity. "Sir, you need to see this," said Technical Officer Lisa Brown, pulling up a video feed. "Our satellites caught it 10 minutes ago." The screen showed Alliance ships approaching Mars. They had expected to find empty space. Instead, they found themselves facing a network of defense satellites that hadn't been there the day before. "How do they build those so fast?" an Alliance officer asked in an intercepted transmission. The answer was simple. They hadn't built them. They had repurposed thousands of communication satellites, weather monitors, and space telescopes, turning them into a makeshift defense grid. Humans were adapting existing technology in ways the Alliance had never considered possible. "They're powering up weapons," Brown reported, her voice steady despite the tension. Wells nodded. "Launch Operation Slingshot." Across the solar system, the repurposed satellites began moving. The Alliance ships, expecting simple targets, found themselves caught in a complex dance of orbital mechanics. Earth's relatively primitive weapons weren't very powerful, but they didn't need to be. The satellites were using gravity itself as a weapon, creating a web of gravitational disturbances that the Alliance ships couldn't navigate safely. "Sir, look!" Someone pointed at another screen. The Alliance ships were crashing into each other, their advanced navigation systems confused by the unexpected gravitational fluctuations. In their 1,000 years of space warfare, the Alliance had never seen anything like this. They had always relied on superior technology to win. Now they faced an enemy that turned their own environment against them. Back on their command ship, the High Commander watched in disbelief. "Impossible. Their technology is centuries behind ours. How are they doing this?" The answer came in the form of a transmission from Earth. Commander Wells's face appeared on their screen. "You may have better ships," he said calmly, "but we have something you don't. Creativity. While you were learning to use your advanced technology, we were learning to solve problems with whatever we had available." The High Commander snarled. "You're still primitives. We can destroy your entire civilization from orbit." "Maybe," Wells agreed. "But take a look at your ship's computer systems first." The Alliance officers frantically checked their systems. Somehow, while they were distracted by the satellite attack, humans had managed to infiltrate their computer networks. Not with advanced technology, but with simple, elegant code that their complex security systems weren't designed to detect. "By the way," Wells added, "we've already downloaded your weapon schematics. Turns out they're not as complicated as they look. Our engineers are having a field day with them." The High Commander slammed his fist down. "This is impossible. You're lying." In response, Wells played back a recording of the High Commander's private conversation with the Alliance Council from the day before. "We're not as primitive as you think." The first major battle between humanity and the Stellar Alliance ended not with the humans' defeat, but with the Alliance fleet retreating in confusion. They had lost a quarter of their ships, not to superior firepower, but to humans using their own environment and technology against them. As the Alliance ships disappeared into deep space, Wells turned to his crew. "They'll be back," he said. "And next time, they'll be angry. But now, they know something important. Humans don't just roll over and die." Brown smiled as she worked at her station. "Sir, you should see what our engineers have already figured out from those weapon schematics. I think the Alliance is in for a few more surprises." The battle was over, but the war was just beginning, and humanity was proving to be anything but primitive. Dr. Anna Blake stood in her underground laboratory, surrounded by pieces of alien technology. 3 months had passed since the first battle, and humans had been busy. Very busy. "Look at this," she said, pointing to a holographic display showing an Alliance weapon. They built their entire technology around perfect conditions. They never considered what would happen if things went wrong. General Peters, who had come to check on the research progress, raised an eyebrow. "And that's their weakness." "It's more than that," Anna replied, her eyes bright with excitement. Their species evolved on perfect worlds. They never had to adapt to harsh conditions like humans did. They never learned to improvise. On the screen behind them, videos play showing Alliance ships in various battles. Their movements were perfect, their formations flawless, until something unexpected happened. Then they fell apart. Humans are messy, Anna continued, picking up a piece of alien metal. We make mistakes. We break things. But that's exactly why we're stronger than they are. We know how to fix things, how to work around problems. They don't. The general watched as she demonstrated her point. She had taken an Alliance energy weapon and modified it to work with Earth's power systems, something the Alliance had thought impossible. But more than that, she had made it better. Where the original weapon would fail if it overheated, her version could keep working even when damaged. We're getting reports from all over, Peters said, checking his tablet. Our guerrilla tactics are driving them crazy. They can't understand why their sensors can't track our movements. Anna smiled. That's because they're looking for what they expect to see. Advanced technology, energy signatures, standard military formations. Instead, we're using underground tunnels, old radio frequencies, and even paper maps. We're fighting like our ancestors did, but with a modern twist. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the facility. Peters checked his communication device. They're attacking the moon base. They rushed to the command center, where screens showed the battle unfolding. The Alliance had sent their newest ships, equipped with technology they thought humans couldn't possibly counter. They expected an easy victory. They were wrong. The moon base, appearing vulnerable on their sensors, was actually a trap. As the Alliance ships moved in for the kill, hundreds of small objects launched from the lunar surface. Not missiles or energy weapons, but simple mirrors, thousands of them, arranged in precise patterns. Now, Anna commanded through her headset. Earth's ground-based lasers fired, their beams hitting the mirrors and splitting into thousands of smaller beams. The Alliance ships, designed to defend against powerful energy weapons, had no defense against this web of smaller attacks that slipped through their shields. Impossible, came the Alliance commander's transmission. Their weapons are primitive. Their technology is inferior. No, Anna replied to the open channel. We're not inferior. We're different, and that's what you don't understand. As the Alliance fleet retreated once again, Anna turned to General Peters. They still think this is about technology. They don't understand that humanity's real strength isn't in our weapons or our machines. It's in here. She tapped her head. What do you mean? Peters asked. Every human grows up solving problems, from learning to walk, to figuring out social situations, to surviving in different environments. We're natural problem solvers. The Alliance species never had to do that. They just relied on their technology to solve everything for them. Peters looked at the screens showing the retreating Alliance ships. So you're saying our weakness is actually our strength? Exactly, Anna replied. Our imperfect worlds, our struggles, our need to adapt and overcome. These things didn't make us weak. They made us powerful in ways the Alliance can't understand. In orbit, the damaged Alliance ships limped away, their commanders frantically trying to understand what had gone wrong. They had superior technology, superior numbers, superior everything. Yet somehow, these primitives were not just surviving. They were winning. What they didn't realize was that every defeat taught humans something new, while the Alliance just kept making the same mistakes. The gap between them wasn't growing larger, it was shrinking, and faster than anyone had expected. The Alliance war room was in chaos. Marcus, their military leader who had taken a human name to better understand his enemy, stared at the holographic displays in disbelief. 5 major fleets had just been lost attacking Earth's colonies on Mars. How? He demanded, his silver skin reflecting the red warning lights. How did they know where we would attack? A junior officer stepped forward nervously. Sir, we think they broke our codes. Impossible. Marcus slammed all four hands on the control panel. Our encryption is based on mathematical principles beyond their understanding. But the evidence was clear on the screens before them. The human defenders had been waiting at every target. Not just waiting. They had set traps that used the Alliance's own attack patterns against them. Meanwhile, on the Mars Colony Defense Center, Major Robert King watched the last Alliance ship retreat. He turned to his communication officer. "Send the message." The officer nodded and pressed a button. Across every Alliance communication channel, a simple text message appeared. "Your codes aren't as complex as you think. P.S. We learned your language too." The message was followed by a detailed breakdown of the Alliance's supposedly unbreakable encryption method. But they had written it in the Alliance's own secret military language, just to prove their point. Back in the Alliance war room, Marcus felt something he had never experienced before. Fear. Not of the humans' weapons, but of their minds. In just 6 months, they had learned more about Alliance technology than any other species had in centuries. "Sir," another officer called out, "we're detecting strange energy readings from Earth's moon." Marcus turned to look at the new data, but it was already too late. The humans had built something during the battle, something that didn't make sense according to Alliance science. It looked like a giant magnetic pulse generator, but it was built using parts from destroyed Alliance ships combined with human technology. "That's not possible," Marcus whispered. "Those systems aren't compatible." The device activated. A wave of energy swept through space, not destroying Alliance ships, but something far worse. It was rewriting their navigation data. Their entire fleet was now lost in space, their perfect navigation systems turned into useless junk. How did they even think of this? Marcus asked nobody in particular. "Our ship's navigation is perfect. It never occurred to us it could be a weakness." On Earth, in the Global Defense Command Center, Commander Wells smiled as he watched the Alliance fleet drift in confusion. "When you grow up using paper maps and compasses," he said to his crew, "you never forget that technology can fail. You always have a backup plan." The Alliance Council called an emergency meeting. For the first time in their 1,000-year history, they were facing not just defeat, but humiliation. A supposedly primitive species had taken their greatest strengths and turned them into weaknesses. Marcus stood before the council, his pride broken. "We made a mistake," he admitted. "We judged them by their technology level. We should have looked at how quickly they learn, how easily they adapt. They don't think like us. They think in ways we never imagined possible." "What are you suggesting?" asked the council leader. "I'm suggesting we've awakened something we don't understand. Humans don't just fight with weapons. They fight with ideas. Every time we attack them, they don't just defend themselves. They learn from us, adapt our technology, and make it work in ways we never considered." The council chamber fell silent. In their long history of conquering other species, they had never encountered one that grew stronger from being attacked. Human survivors didn't just rebuild. They rebuilt better, smarter, stronger. As Marcus looked at the latest battle reports, he realized a terrible truth. They had started this war thinking they were the teachers, coming to show a primitive species their place in the galaxy. Instead, they were becoming the students, learning harsh lessons about underestimating humanity. Admiral Jane Foster stood on the bridge of the Earth's first true starship, the EDS Hope. Built using a combination of human innovation and reverse-engineered Alliance technology, it represented everything that made humanity different from their enemies. "Status report," she called out, looking at the vast expanse of space through the main viewport. "3 Alliance worlds within range, Admiral," her tactical officer reported. "Their defenses are still active, but they're not expecting us. They think their location is still a secret." Jane nodded. The Alliance had never imagined that humans would be able to reach their core world so quickly. They had expected the war to stay contained within Earth's solar system. That had been their latest mistake. "Launch the drones," she ordered. Thousands of small, simple drones deployed from the Hope. Unlike the Alliance's complex war machines, these were basic devices built to do one thing well. They flew towards the Alliance defense platforms, broadcasting captured Alliance security codes. They're responding exactly as Dr. Blake predicted, the tactical officer said with a smile. Their automated systems are so rigidly programmed, they can't tell our drones aren't their own maintenance units. On the nearest Alliance world, panic spread through their command centers as they realized what was happening. The humans weren't just attacking, they were taking control of the Alliance's own defense systems. How are they doing this? An Alliance commander demanded. Those drones are primitive. They shouldn't be able to interface with our technology. The answer was simple, though the Alliance struggled to understand it. Humans had built their drones to be imperfect. Where Alliance systems expected perfect, clean signals, the human drones sent messy, complicated ones that confused the rigid Alliance protocols. But what happened next shocked the Alliance even more. Instead of destroying their worlds, as the Alliance would have done, Admiral Foster opened a communication channel. "Attention Alliance forces," she broadcast. "Your defense systems are under our control. You have two options: surrender or watch us use your weapons to disable your ships. No lives will be lost either way. The choice is yours." In the Alliance command center, confusion reigned. "They can destroy us," one officer said. "Why are they offering mercy?" The answer came from an unexpected source. A young Alliance scientist stepped forward, one who had been studying human behavior. "Because that's what makes them different," he said. "Humans don't just fight to win. They fight to protect, even their enemies." On 3 Alliance worlds, defense platforms powered down as their commanders chose surrender over pointless resistance. Not a single life was lost in what would later be called the 3 Worlds Offensive. Back on the Hope, Admiral Foster received reports from Earth about how the Alliance was fracturing. Some of their species wanted to continue the war, but others had begun to question everything they had believed about humans. "Admiral," her communication officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from the Alliance Council. They want to talk." Foster smiled. "Put them through." The Alliance Council leader appeared on screen, looking both confused and impressed. "You could have destroyed those worlds," they said. "Why didn't you?" "Because that's not who we are," Foster replied. "Humans fight hard, yes. We fight to win. But we also know the value of mercy, something you might want to think about." The council leader was silent for a long moment. Perhaps we have more to learn from humans than we thought." As the transmission ended, Foster looked at her crew. They were tired but proud. In less than a year, humanity had gone from being seen as primitive savages to teaching one of the galaxy's most powerful civilizations a lesson about strength and mercy. "Send word to Earth," she ordered. "Tell them the tide has turned. But also tell them this: we won't become like them. We won't kill unnecessarily, even in victory. That's what makes us human." The message went out across space as the Hope prepared to return home. The war wasn't over, but something fundamental had changed. The Alliance had started to understand that true strength wasn't about superior technology or perfect systems. It was about something much more powerful: the ability to show mercy even when you don't have to. The Alliance Council chamber had never been so quiet. On the massive screen before them, they watched a recording that changed everything they thought they knew about humans. A massive asteroid was heading toward one of their colony worlds. The Alliance ships couldn't reach it in time. But a human ship, the EDS Hope, happened to be nearby on a routine patrol. "Look at what they did," Marcus said to the council, his voice filled with wonder. "They didn't just save our colony. They risked their own lives to do it." The recording showed the human ship positioning itself between the asteroid and the colony. Using a combination of their own technology and modified Alliance systems, they created a gravity well that pulled the asteroid off course. The maneuver had nearly torn their ship apart, but they had saved millions of Alliance lives. "But why?" asked one council member. "We were at war with them. They could have just let nature eliminate one of our colonies. An Alliance scientist named Rick stepped forward. She had spent months studying human behavior. That's what we're finally beginning to understand, she said. Humans don't just fight harder than any species we've met. They also protect harder. She pulled up more recordings. Humans providing medical aid to injured Alliance soldiers, feeding prisoners of war the same food they ate themselves, even risking their lives to save Alliance ships that had been damaged in battle. Their strength isn't just in their ability to fight. Rix continued. It's in their ability to care. They fight so hard precisely because they care so much. The council chamber erupted in discussion. This was something entirely new in their experience. In their 1,000-year history, they had never encountered a species that showed such strength in both battle and mercy. Meanwhile, on Earth, Dr. Anna Blake was making another discovery. She had been studying Alliance biology, trying to understand why they were so different from humans. Look at this, she said to General Peters, pointing to her findings. Their worlds were perfect. Their evolution was perfect. They never had to adapt or change. But that means they never learned how to handle imperfection. And humans? Peters asked. We evolved on a world that tried to kill us 1,000 different ways, Anna replied. We faced disease, natural disasters, climate changes, and we survived it all. Not because we were perfect, but because we learned to adapt, to help each other, to care about more than just ourselves. In orbit around Earth, Admiral Foster received an urgent transmission from the Alliance Council. They wanted to hold an emergency session, not to discuss terms of surrender, but to understand. The session was held in neutral space. Foster stood before the council, representing humanity. The chamber was packed with representatives from all Alliance species. We've been wrong about everything, the council leader admitted. We thought our perfect technology made us superior. We thought our unchanging worlds made us strong. But watching humans, seeing how you fight for others as hard as you fight for yourselves, seeing how you turn weakness into strength, seeing how you show mercy even to enemies, we finally understand what true advancement looks like. Foster nodded. The strongest steel is forged in the hottest fire, she said. Earth wasn't a perfect world. That's exactly why we became strong. We had to work together, adapt, and care about each other to survive. The council leaders stood. Then teach us, they said, not just your technology or your tactics. Teach us what we've forgotten in our pursuit of perfection, how to be imperfect, how to adapt, how to care. As Foster looked around the chamber, she saw something she never expected. Hope. The Alliance had started this war believing they were superior. They were ending it by asking to learn from those they had once dismissed as primitive. The war that began with a casual act of cruelty was ending with an unprecedented request for understanding. Humanity hadn't just proved their strength. They had shown the galaxy a better way to be strong. 5 years had passed since the war ended. The Great Hall of the new Alliance headquarters on Earth was filled with both human and alien representatives. Above them, carved in both human and Alliance languages, were the words that had changed everything. We won't ever kill a human again. Commander Tom Wells, now a teacher at the Joint Human Alliance Academy, stood before a group of young officers from both species. On the screen behind him, images showed the remarkable changes of the past 5 years. The war taught us all something important, he said, looking at his mixed audience. Strength isn't just about power, it's about how you use that power. In the front row, a young Alliance officer raised her hand. Like many of her kind now, she had taken a human name, Rose. Is it true that humans knew they could win from the very beginning? Wells smiled. No, we didn't know we would win. We just knew we wouldn't give up. There's a difference. The screen showed new images, human engineers working alongside Alliance technicians, combining their technologies in ways neither side had imagined before. Human creativity and Alliance precision had proved to be a powerful combination. Dr. Anna Blake, now the head of the Joint Sciences Division, entered the hall with exciting news. "We've just made another breakthrough," she announced. "Using human adaptability principles, we've helped the Alliance solve their oldest problem, their inability to settle on imperfect worlds." The news spread quickly through the hall. The Alliance had always been limited to perfect worlds similar to their homeworlds. Now, using human-inspired technologies, they could adapt to different environments just as humans had learned to do over millennia. Meanwhile, in orbit, Admiral Foster watched from the observation deck of humanity's newest ship, a vessel built by both species working together. It combined Alliance precision with human adaptability, making it unlike anything either civilization had created before. "Admiral," her new Alliance second-in-command said, "the first joint exploration fleet is ready for launch." Foster nodded, remembering how far they'd come. "Who would have thought," she said, "that a war that started with death would lead to so much new life?" Back in the Great Hall, Marcus, the former Alliance military leader who had first realized their mistake, addressed the gathering. His silver skin had taken on a slight golden tinge, a sign of the genetic adaptations the Alliance species were now capable of. "We came to Earth thinking we were perfect," he said. "We thought our technology, our unchanging nature, our rigid systems made us superior. But humans taught us that perfection is a dead end. It's the ability to change, to adapt, to care, and yes, even to fail and learn from those failures, that leads to true growth." The hall erupted in applause from both humans and Alliance members. Above them, ships from both civilizations flew in formation, their crews no longer divided by species but united in purpose. As the ceremony ended, a small group gathered in a quiet corner of the hall. They were the original players in this drama: Wells, Blake, Foster, Marcus, and others who had seen both the worst and best of the conflict. "Did you ever imagine it would end like this?" Wells asked, looking at their former enemies who had become their closest allies. Marcus shook his head. "We came to teach you your place in the galaxy," he said. "Instead, you taught us that we had forgotten our own capacity for growth." Dr. Blake smiled, holding up a data pad showing the latest joint research projects. "And this is just the beginning," she said. "Imagine what we can achieve now that we're working together instead of fighting each other." As the sun set on another day of this new era, the words above them took on an even deeper meaning. "We won't ever kill a human again" had become more than a promise. It was a reminder that sometimes the greatest victories don't come from destroying your enemies, but from turning them into friends. The galaxy was changing, growing, adapting. And it all started because humanity refused to be thought of as primitive, refused to submit, and most importantly, refused to lose their humanity even in the face of superior force.